All right, let's pull back the curtain on those giant content platforms like Adobe Experience Manager. We're going to dig into the hidden architecture that stops millions of files from becoming absolute chaos. Let's get right into it.
I mean, really think about that for a second. You've got terabytes of data, right? Thousands of people are making changes all the time. Your basic folder system on your laptop would just completely fall apart. There has to be a smarter way to do this, a blueprint. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big idea behind content structure. Then we'll get to know the foundation, which is called the JCR. We'll break down its core building blocks, see how these blueprints keep everything in line, and then we'll tie it all back to how AEM uses the stuff in the real world.
Okay, first things first, we need to kind of shift our thinking a little bit. Forget about just storing files for a minute.
Think about it this way. A folder on your computer can hold a file, sure, but it has no idea what that file is. It doesn't know if it's a blog post, a product page, or a press release. A modern system needs to be smarter than that. It needs a structure that actually understands the meaning and the purpose of the content inside it.
And that intelligence, well, that brings us to the hero of our story, a standard called the Java Content Repository, or just JCR for short. Now, that sounds pretty technical, I know, but here's the key takeaway. JCR is not a product you buy. It's a specification. It's a detailed rulebook. This means different systems can all follow the same rules, which makes everything predictable and really, really powerful. It's all about organizing content in a hierarchy, kind of like a family tree. So at the highest level, the JCR model makes a lot of sense. You've got the whole repository. That's the entire database. Inside that, you have at least one workspace. You can think of a workspace as a complete version of all your content. Every single workspace has one and only one root node. That's the very top of the tree. And from there, everything, and I mean everything, is built from just two simple things: nodes and properties. So let's zoom in on those two building blocks, nodes and properties. This is really where the magic starts to happen. This slide is probably the most important one to really let sink in. A node is basically a smart folder. It's a container. It can hold other nodes, which creates that tree structure we were talking about. But here's the key. It can also hold properties. A property is where the actual data lives. The headline of an article, the author's name, the date it was published. So the nodes build the skeleton and the properties are the flesh on the bones. And a property isn't just a chunk of text. The JCR specification is very specific. You've got your basics, like strings for text and longs for numbers, but you also get some really powerful types, like binary, which is how you store an actual file, like an image. And then you have path or reference, which are basically just pointers to other pieces of content in the repository. That's how you start building relationships and linking everything together. And just like a file on your computer, every single node and every single property has a totally unique address. We call that its path. It's a simple, easy-to-read way to find your way through the content tree. For example, a path like this one tells you exactly where to go. You start at the very top, the root, then you go down through the content node, then brand, US, EN, and boom, you've arrived at the products node. It's just a clean, logical map to your content. Okay, so we've got nodes as containers and properties as the data. But what stops the whole thing from becoming a mess? What stops someone from putting, I don't know, a whole video file where the page title is supposed to go? Well, that's where node types come in. This is the really crucial part. A nodes type is the blueprint. It's the set of rules. You could even think of it as the DNA for a piece of content. When you create a new node, you have to give it a type, and that type lays down the law. It says, hey, if you're going to be a blog post node, you must have a title property, and it has to be text. And you're allowed to have a thumbnail image as a child. And these blueprints are incredibly detailed. A node type defines everything. Its unique name, what other types it inherits from, what properties and child nodes are allowed, which ones are absolutely mandatory, and even which parts should be created automatically for you. This is it. This is how you enforce consistency across millions and millions of items. So, that's all the theory. But how does this actually look in the real world? Let's bring it all home and see how a platform like Adobe Experience Manager puts this foundation to work. So here's the thing. AEM is built right on top of this JCR foundation. It doesn't go off and reinvent the wheel. Instead, it builds a massive library of its own custom node types. Each one is carefully designed to represent a piece of the AEM puzzle, a web page, a digital asset, a reusable component, you name it.
Okay, check this out. This is a simplified look at AEM's blueprint for a basic piece of page content. It's called CQ page content. And you can immediately see the theory in action, right? There's a JCR title property for the title, a true-false property called hide and nav. You've even got date properties like on time and off time for scheduling when a page goes live. Literally, every field you fill out in the AEM editor is just one of these properties. Now let's compare that to the blueprint for a digital asset, like an image. This is a DAM asset. See how different its structure is? That's because its job is different. Instead of a bunch of simple properties, it defines required child nodes, like a metadata node, to hold things like image dimensions, and a renditions node to hold all the different automatically generated versions, like thumbnails and web-sized copies. It's a special structure for a special job. And that right there, that's the big aha moment. In a system like AEM, a page isn't just a file sitting in a dumb folder. It is a highly structured, self-describing node. It's built from a strict blueprint, and it's packed with intelligent properties and relationships that the entire system understands. That is how you manage content chaos at a massive scale. Once you understand this foundation, it really changes how you look at content management. It's not just about storage anymore. It's about creating these intelligent, connected models for your information. The JCR gives you the standard. Platforms like AEM give you the tools, so the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?